All right, so let's talk about the end of this race. Over the Daytona weekend, you had a couple races that ended under cautions on the last lap. Obviously, the duel one was one that was the first duel was particularly controversial because it changed the winner to Austin Cindric from Eric Jones, which would have been a good win, and maybe it was a little too quick to the trigger. In the Truck Series race, probably there was a wreck happening for a long time. Probably could have been sooner, but they tried to let it go as far as it could. I don't think it would have changed anything because I already saw the yellow by the time Heim was trying to go beneath me, so I was just letting him do it. It didn't matter. And, we got DQ'd anyway. In the Xfinity Series race, it ended with a massive wreck at the start-finish line, so that was fine. And then the Cup race had a big wreck into turn 3 down the backstretch, and they let it race back to the checkered flag, which was sort of unusual and different. Jusan Hamilton talked about this on the newest NASCAR podcast called Hauler Talk, and basically saying that, they're looking at the idea of where the safety personnel and maybe with a wreck at Daytona like that, they can let it race back because there's enough safety personnel back there. And, the track, it takes so long for the leaders to get back around to that side of the track that there's enough time and room for them to finish the race. Going into this weekend, it was, a discussion that maybe that wasn't the correct thing to do, that maybe there were still people driving through that wreck at the end of Daytona 500. A lot of drivers were upset about it. There was a lot of discussion between NASCAR and the drivers, and going to this weekend was basically decided that, especially for Atlanta, that sort of thing wouldn't happen. They wouldn't let it race because it's condensed. It's harder to get safety personnel there. Probably dangerous if you're having big wrecks into 3. Most likely just need to throw the caution. In the truck race, didn't need to worry about that. It was a clean race, but in the Xfinity race, they did let it race back to the checkered, of which I rightfully, pointed out on the broadcast was that, hey, this is just a little inconsistent. And whatever decision is made, just you want to see consistency, and I'd like to see it tightened up. NASCAR admitted the next day that they most likely should not have let that race end under green and be raced back to the line with the wrecks that they had and what happened in Atlanta, and they told the drivers in the drivers meeting if that happened in the Cup race, it would not be the case that they'd let them race back. And sure enough, in the Cup race, we have a caution into turn 3 down the backstretch, and they threw the caution really quickly, which ruined a 3-wide finish to the end, to the line for the second year in a row. I think you said it best, Alton. I don't envy their position.
I'm tired, Parker.
Yeah. I don't envy it. I get by the safety side of things, they did the correct thing Sunday night. 100%. But it was like, if you're going to have a mulligan, and this is where it gets really murky. If you're going to use a mulligan like they kind of did in the Daytona 500 in some respects, I would have had them use it Sunday and not on Saturday.
So my solution to all this is a scenario that's probably impossible to enforce, but maybe not, because nothing is impossible. I think that the yellow flag should be displayed for everybody behind the wreck.
Fix it. There you go.
So that you can't race through the wreck. So if they're wrecking in front of you, then slow down. Safely miss the wreck, and come to the checkered flag. For everybody in front of the wreck, you can race to the end of the race. Right? I think that could go for Atlanta and Daytona.
How do you decide who's ahead of behind the wreck?
Timing and scoring, loops, whatever, I don't know.
That's actually a genius solution.
I mean,
Was
it's not
William Byron?
because that line of who gets involved in are you behind the wreck, or are you in front of the wreck, whatever is that line, how do you draw that line? I don't know.
Well, if you slow down, if you're behind it, just think about this. Okay, say you're in it or behind it, wherever, and you're like slopping and you're trying to avoid this whole thing. And so that point, they acknowledge there's a wreck. They somehow throw a caution for that section of the track and not the other section, but the race continues. You drive across the line. You gain 10 spots. You've been moving forward the whole time. Technically, like, through all the data they have, they would be able to see, like, oh, this car was not in the
Or like
wreck
maybe you could go as
behind?
far as saying we freeze the field for everybody except for the race for the win.
Boom.
Like we
That's
just want
kinda
to see a winner.
badass.
So if it's, you know what I mean? Like, because think about that 3 wide scenario.
They
Just
would
let
have had
them
it
race.
finished. Yeah.
Yeah, like we lock everybody behind them, and then we let the winner decide at the
Why is
flag.
it not a thing? It's genius. It would fix all
I don't
this.
know. I don't know. Maybe I mean I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. No matter what, no matter how well they write that rule and that policy, and how well they use all the cameras and the theory of freezing the field and all this stuff, there still will be somebody who is adjacent to the wreck,
Yep.
who, is within eye shot of the wreck, who stays hammered down, blasts through it, and the question will be like, well, were they supposed to be frozen? Should they be penalized because they didn't lift?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess the only way to find out is to try it. And then the drivers will be like, no, well, they're going to kill us. And it's like, okay, well, then let's just. Josh looks like he wants to chime in, but I think I'm going to steal the idea that he wants to say, why not just go back? Why don't we just do restarts? Throw the yellow, re-rack them, green, white, checkered.
ARCA has it right.
What's that? Just endless?
Yeah, it doesn't need to be endless. You can put a limit on it, but don't over officiate the problem, which is if you throw a caution, the race should be paused.
Well, hang
And
on,
then
though,
go
Josh. This is actually, I just realized something. You still have the same problem
How?
because you still have to decide whether to throw a caution or not.
But it doesn't end the race, so it's not like it doesn't
I agree.
end. You're not going to end on that note.
But at some point, you might. So this might be an improvement, and there's no solution. There's never a solution. So this might be an improvement, and it might be a step in the right direction. So that's why it's probably a good idea. I'll give you that. However, we're still going to be faced with a judgment call where at some point NASCAR is going to either swallow the yellow flag or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, however, where this idea works is if that can minimize the amount of times that NASCAR did or didn't, then we can minimize the debate. I don't know. Well, no, it's not going to minimize because how many there's 2 Atlantas, 2 Talladegas, 2 Daytonas, 6 times a year. We're going to have a wreck on the last lap. Like, that's just how super speedway racing is. They're going to have to make this decision every single time. I don't know.
But it would allow them to be more consistent on their calls. If a wreck is a wreck,
you're right, because it's not ending the race.
Yeah.
It would allow them to be like, nope, we're calling it a caution if it is a regular old caution.
Yep.
Unless it's a single car half spin.
I feel like
with
we've
no
done
contact.
I feel like it's been done, and then you end up with the 9,000 of them at
Restarts.
Gateway.
And you end up with just a whole carnage of wrecked cars.
Yeah.
Josh, I think that your idea is better than the current state. It also results in more wrecked race cars, which the team owners will probably don't like that. I think my idea is novel and should be tried. I think there's something interesting there that would be like, okay, how do we just freeze the field except for the race for the win or the cars that are in front of the wreck and just not let that overshadow a great finish?
Because in both of those, in your scenario, now the where it gets murky is like William Byron escaped the wreck, so I guess he would be considered not in the wreck and leader at the Daytona 500.
Finished 4th. Who cares?
What's that?
Like, that's not what we care about. We just robbed the industry.
Yep.
Right? The network partners who pay us $1 billion a year. We robbed them of an incredible highlight.
Yep. For a second year in a row.
For a second year in a row.
Yeah. We robbed everyone. The 3-wide finish last year went viral. It was hundreds of millions of views across all different platforms. It was massive for NASCAR.
You can't pay for that. Like, that is,
Yep.
You can't pay for that. That is literally what NBC pays for, what Fox pays for, what CW pays for, what Amazon pays for. Right?
Yeah.
And we're robbing them of that by throwing a caution, slow down, coasting to the finish. Right? So, So, I don't know. Maybe try my idea. I'm not saying it's a great idea. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Maybe it's impossible. Maybe maybe it's a great idea until that one time that Carson Hocevar keeps a wood to the floor and thinks he's Cole Trickle and then kills somebody.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry, Carson. I didn't mean to call you out like that.
Jeez.
One other thing I want to say about that, my idea, ARCA does green white at the same time. So it's not green white checkered, it's green checkered.
Yeah.
So it takes one last lap on the board.
Right.
And I feel like that's kind of a balance into that situation if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
I don't like that. You got to have 2 laps.
I don't know. I whatever. You guys can flip a coin over that. I mean, I think it's interesting, and they're both. I don't know. I think that they're both better than what they're currently doing because it's at the end of the day, to me, the guiding light that we should all agree on is there's got to be a green flag finish. There just has to be.
There has to be. This day and age. When you have super speedways like this or tracks designed like this and a car that allows this sort of thing with 3 wide finish, you just got to have those finishes for the clips and the social side and everything. It's just going to go big and everyone's going to be talking about it. We'd be having a totally different discussion right now. And I think...
And it's funny because it's like we went through all this trouble to create green white checkers and all this stuff to make sure that we have as many green flag finishes as possible.
Yep.
And it's like we're almost right. I don't want to say we're right back to, but it's just like we're right back to just close to right back to where we used to be, where it's like, well, I guess a race could finish under caution, where we'll never truly know who the race winner was.
Yep. And we don't want to go back to the overtime line. Remember that ill-fated adventure?
Well, the overtime line is no different than what we're at right now. It's just like another start-finish line.
Yeah, I just didn't like that. I thought it was wildly confusing. There was no reason. It was like,
well, it is confusing because it's just a start-finish line.
Yeah, but it was confusing because it wasn't the start-finish line. So it was just like, why not just use the start-finish line? It didn't make any sense to me.
No, it was well-intentioned. Well, and actually, it was like they were trying to do something similar to what I'm saying here.
Yeah,
which
they
is,
were.
You know, once you get past a certain point.
Was that on the 2 to go lap?
No,
wasn't it to kind of curtail the 2 to go lap? It wasn't on the white flag lap, was it?
I'm pretty sure it was on the white flag. Well, maybe not. Maybe it was.
Maybe it was 2 to go.
I thought they did that because they had a limit of 3, and then people were complaining that they were, they just expired them or what have you, or there was just an issue, and they were like, we're just going to go on forever. So they wanted to move the line. So
they need to try my idea.
I like your idea. I think it's the move. Try Landon's idea. Listen to Landon.
You know where it can be tested?
He's an oracle. Where's that?
iRacing.
I was thinking, yeah, could be. You could try it in the truck series. Why not just do it there first?
There you go.
That's what those series are for.